Welcome to the Fighting For podcast, and we just want to welcome you. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Valentino, and this is Joel, and we just want to thank you for joining us. And
yeah, so glad to get to talk about the Fighting For: prayer, purpose, power, and people. 4 areas of life that relate to what it means to be a whole person. It's not just what we're thinking in our minds. It's also our connection to God. That's prayer. What we're thinking, our purpose. Power is our physical body. We've got to take care of ourselves as it relates to any area of life, whether we're talking about recovery or just pursuing goals and wanting to be happy, as the Serenity Prayer says, reasonably happy in this life. And then finally, we talk about people and our connection to that, personal connections. Have you ever said about, you've heard somebody say, or maybe you've said, my soulmate? You're talking about a very deep relationship with another person that helps you understand who you are. And so prayer, purpose, power, people, 4 areas of life that we can pursue health in. And that is our fight for recovery, fight for goals in our lives, whatever it is. It's kind of interesting. The reason we start with prayer. A lot of times we've heard people that are going through recovery say, I'm just starting to pray again. That's their summary of this new life that they're experiencing. They're starting to pray again. Why is it that people stop praying, whether they prayed at all at first, but whether the addiction lifestyle is when you stop praying and recovery starts to look like praying again? Why is that? Any thoughts about that?
I could look back at my past, and when I was in my addiction, I didn't want to, I kind of everything that had to do with our Creator, God, because I know everything I was doing didn't line up with His will for me, right? So we kind of pushed that away. But when you start to sober up, you start to realize, start regaining connection with God again, so you start to pray again, right? That's just my personal take on it, because I'm just thinking back of my past. That's my experience, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, we just kind of, and I don't think it's just, it's intentional. It just kind of happens, you get so caught up into the life, into the lifestyle, and you just keep going that, sometimes you just don't stop to think and pray. Everyone's different. For me, that's kind of way how it worked. There's some people I've met that they pray through sometimes. They pray even though they're, in the bad situations or, in different areas of life when they still pray through. Yeah, they
haven't completely given up hope in a way.
So I guess it just varies. But I hear a lot of people do say that, just like you mentioned, I'm starting to pray again, and part of that is just that lost connection, lost connection with God, who we are. We talk about the center of control, where someone feels like it's, that self-centered life. Everything is about me. That's kind of what addiction is. It's about me. It's about the way I feel, and anybody else that it affects, well, they've got to take care of themselves because I got to take care of me. And yeah, part of that too is starting to realize who is really the center of control. I mean, who is the one who started our life, the one who's keeping us alive, the one who will be there when we're gone. And all humans, we have a time limit. Mm-hmm. And the only way that we're alive is because God keeps us alive. And I think it's also realizing some of that. Who is in control? Like who should be in control? That stresses us out a little bit when we feel like we're in control of everything, and people feel that anxiety, the responsibilities of life kind of crushing down on them. How do you think that affects somebody's addiction when they feel like life is just crushing, the weight of all the cares of life? Man, it's a lot. It can be a lot, because it just feels like everything's on your shoulders, and you get to a point of not even wanting to deal with it no more. You know what I mean? When you feel like life's hitting you, you got, different issues in life. You got court stuff. You got, real life, going to school, kids, health, all these things, right?
and and plus your addiction, you know what I mean? And you're trying to do all of these things. Eventually you just go straight to the addiction, and it kind of numbs out everything, makes you forget about it all. But that's not really, how would you say? Not really, obviously it's not the best way, right? Because you forget about all those other things, right? It doesn't mean that they're not there, but you just kind of forget about it.
Do you think hitting rock bottom is necessary for people to get to that point of realizing that they can't do it all, or it's not working? We hear a lot of people talk about hitting rock bottom, and I think everybody feels pretty united on the idea that rock bottom is something that can be good. Do you have to hit rock bottom? I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't think you have to hit rock bottom. One thing I try to pour into my kids is that learn from other people's mistakes. Try, really examine, kind of observe the situations and learn from them. That way you don't have to make those mistakes. But is that always the case? No, sometimes, like I'm thinking about my kids, sometimes they're going to have to figure it out, right? They want to go through it.
Learn the hard way.
Learn the hard way. I was just talking to somebody yesterday, and they were talking about that. That's the way I teach my kids. You're going to learn one way or the other. It's either going to learn from me telling you, or you're going to go through it and you're going to figure it out. But either way, you're going to learn, and I thought that was really good, because I was just like, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, but which way do you want to learn? And that's not just for kids. That's for all of us, right? How do you want to learn? Do you want to learn from my mistakes? Because I could tell you all the things that I did, and I could tell you, hey, don't do that, right? But at the end of the day, are you going to learn from that, or do you want to figure it out on your own? And I'm hoping I'm just reflecting back on my kids. I hope that they learn from my mistakes, that they don't make the same mistakes I did when I was younger, right?
I find it interesting that people sometimes push back to that. When you say learn from others' mistakes, and I feel like there's a little pride wrapped up in, well, I figured it out. I'm going to learn, I got to learn on my own, and I've just got to take the hard hits and just, I don't want to learn from other people's mistakes. I want to learn from my own mistakes. But can you imagine you live your whole life? You would never learn enough. There's always another lesson to learn. And how many rock bottoms do you have to hit before you say, okay, I've learned my lesson? And what you're saying is you really don't have to hit rock bottom in every area. It's like learning from other people's mistakes and that's honestly the reason why we share our stories with others, is that so that people can learn from our mistakes, our successes, same for others, that, we should be able to learn from other people's mistakes and their successes. My mom said the same thing. I remember being in Sunday school. Man, I was probably 12, maybe 10. And I still remember she drew, I don't know what it was exactly. I just remember looking at the board and her drawing something. It was Sunday school. And I don't know if she wrote, my mistakes or others' mistakes. And she said, would you rather learn from your own mistakes or from others' mistakes? And I remember thinking about it as a kid. Of course, I would rather learn without having to make the mistake myself, if it wasn't necessary for me to make that mistake. You're right. Sometimes we'll remember longer, more seriously. We'll take it more seriously when we feel the pain of what we did or what a certain action brings about. But if I don't have to, yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's good. So I guess surrendering control to God is a big piece of what prayer is. Because I'm admitting that I have a problem, because the word pray means to ask. So I am admitting that I don't have something I need. So there's a humility there. There's a recognition that somebody has something that I don't have. Again, that's like giving up my pride to say, I got this. I got this. I could do it. Is that, how does that, how do you think most people handle that whole process of being willing to admit, I don't got this?
Oh man, that's a tough pill to swallow sometimes, because a lot of times we want to be the ones that got it figured out, right? I think it's just in our nature that we, I want to figure these things out. I got this, I can figure this out on my own, right? But until you hit rock bottom. Then you really want to figure it out on your own, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. And, coming back to this idea of prayer being surrendered to God, it's a willingness to admit, I'm in trouble here. I'm stuck. I'm in a place I don't want to be. I don't know how to get out of this place. I keep trying the same things over and over. It's not doing me any good. It's not doing other people any good. I'm kind of reading the signs around me. This is not working. The first step of AA is basically admitting that we have a problem and that life has become unmanageable. It's not working. That is so tough to admit when it's just not working. It's not working. It's not producing the relationships, the friendships. My family's worse off now because of choices I've made. And I have to just, first of all, admit it. And that is the start of prayer. Admitting what the problem is and admitting that I need help. I've heard people say that those 3 words, I need help. Those 3 words can change your life. I need help. Well, the Serenity Prayer is a prayer that we often encourage people to learn and memorize and pray. So, Tina, would you be willing to just take us through the Serenity Prayer? And there's the short version of the Serenity Prayer. And this prayer was written like 100 years ago by a theologian. But he wrote the long prayer, and mostly a lot of recovery programs just use the first part of the prayer. But can you take us through the entire prayer, the whole length of it?
Yeah. So it starts off, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as he did this sinful world as it is, not as I would like it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this world and supremely happy in the next.
Nice.
I'm teaching my son that prayer.
Are you?
Yeah, and he's picking it up. He's about 11 years old, and I just turned 12. My bad.
Get that right.
Yeah, get it right. But yeah, he got the first part down.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so he's working on it.
Which is interesting because, Tino, you and I say this prayer. We've gone kayaking. We'll say it in the middle of kayaking. We've gone backpacking. We'll say it in backpacking. We're at the gym. We're leading workouts. We're going walking. And we say it everywhere. What is it about this prayer of serenity that works for everybody in every place, it seems? What is it?
Because at the end of the day, I think we're all looking for some sense of peace. We just need some sense of, who doesn't want peace? Especially when everything's going wrong. That's what that prayer is about, right? God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. There's things in life that we just don't have a grip on, that we don't understand, that we can't control, right? But there are certain things that we can, which is like our reaction, how we respond to things like that. And it's just asking for the wisdom to know the difference between that. Like, all right, Lord, I can't control this, but I can control this. A lot of times we want to control those things that we can't control, but we got to accept that we can't do that, but we can accept or change how we respond to those things, right?
Right. What is that saying? We say this a lot, but it's been a while since I actually repeated it. Was life is
like a box of chocolates.
We often repeat that.
I'm just kidding.
That one too. Life is what % of what happens to you and what % of how you respond to it. And before you answer that, so get your percentages ready, calculator, is a lot of times we think about life being, it's what happens to us. I mean, I have no choice. It's just, It is what it is. There's the saying that we often have heard so many times. We've probably used it a lot. It is what it is. It's just life. That's what happens. Murphy's Law. Anything bad that can't happen will happen. It always happens to me. You know, we have these very negative views of life that I have no control over life, you know, as it happens to me. It's not my fault. We often point fingers, blame others.
You know, when back in the day when I was still in the life, I used to think that all the time. And it's one of those things, as I see it now, is like, it's one of those things, if you repeat it to yourself long enough, that's what you're going to believe, and that's what's going to happen, right? You know what I mean? Because I noticed when I used to think that about myself, it'd always go wrong. No matter what I did, my mindset was like, something's got to go bad here, and it always went bad. And, you know, I don't know, but when I notice now when I think positive about things, and it never happened bad. Does bad things happen sometimes? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's life. But, you know, I think the way how I set my mind to it now compared to what I was back then, it's really changed the outcome of a lot of things, because it's just, you know, I believe that it's not as bad as it's going to be no more. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it's not as bad as we put it out there to be, you know?
Okay. So life is what % of what happens to you and what % of how you respond to it?
I'm probably going to mess this up, but I believe it was 80% of what happens to you and 20% of how you respond, or 90% of what happened to you and 10% of how you respond.
Or 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond. Although their numbers are swirling. Yeah, but the point there is, it's obviously not a scientific percentage, but it's just a way to think about life is mostly how you respond.
Mm-hmm. I did say it backwards, huh?
Well, the first time you did you put the majority with the part of how you respond. And then the second time you were correcting it and you switched it.
I do that, guys, so my bad. I can't
that makes it all the more enjoyable to like, hey Tino, you know, or you're like, Joel, try this out.
But yeah, you know, it really is a big part of how it is, huh? 10%. Was it 10%? 10% what happens to you, but 90% of how you respond. A big part of it is how you respond to things, which is just like how I was back in the day. You know, it's like I thought it was negative, and so negative, so I'm gonna respond to it negative, right? But now it's like, oh, what happened? That's okay. It's gonna be all right.
People are like this. People see. Okay, I'm gonna say different personalities deal with it differently. Deal with issues in life, but in general, people are more likely to see the negative side of something, just from just a natural perspective, because being negative keeps you on guard. And that's survival. So there's a lot of studies about how people tend to see things negatively, and it's a little bit more impulsive, like that immediate reaction to see something as negative. And it takes a little bit of rewiring, a rethinking to see any positive, especially if something doesn't have an immediate reward for us. But you said that something changed for you because it used to be very negative. And I just give me a little, just a little hint of what changed from that negative view, it's all happening to me, to change the perspective. What was one of those turning points for you?
4-letter word.
Ooh, okay. This is where I get to guess. 4-letter word. Actually, I'm not going to guess. You have to tell me.
So many of those, huh?
So many.
Hope that there's going to be something different. That hope that it's not what I think, right? Hope that it is better than what I see it as, and at first it took a while because my mind was so wired. Like you said, it was wired to think negative. It was always on the defense, right? I got to protect myself. Okay, that's going to go bad. So I got to protect myself from that. It was just a mindset, but once I started noticing like, hey, there's hope here, there's hope. It don't have to be that way. Even though I think it like that, it don't have to be that way, right? So it took some time. Don't get me wrong. I can't really put a time frame on it, but I just remember there was a time where it's just like, even my wife told me like, you always see everything in a positive sense. And I was like, I didn't always used to be like that. And I don't know where it changed in my journey, but for some reason it changed. And it was just the fact that there's hope there, there's hope in every situation, and I don't want to lose that. Don't want to lose hope in things,
That's a great point, and we'll have to hear more about that, and I'm sure we will. But I just want to kind of end with, we talked about the Serenity Prayer, surrendering to God and finding hope. A lot of people see surrender as losing all of the joy, and like, I don't want to surrender because, I want to keep on this journey. I want to be able to say I did it. And they think that they're going to lose happiness by kind of giving the credit to somebody else besides themselves. But it changes everything when God is in control, because yes, he's going to take credit for the good things. Absolutely. God gets credit for it. But the good news is too, God's going to take care of the stuff that's crushing and crashing down. And so I just wanted to read a verse from the Bible that talks about everything is going to be okay. I think all of us want to know that. All of us want to know, is it going to be okay? Like you were saying, the 4-letter word that changed you was hope. And that's hope in what? Well, you could probably say a lot of things in answer to that. But for one thing, just hope that it's going to be okay. It's not going to all crash and burn in the end, because we kind of have this little fear that it will. And even in the Bible, there's this idea of, it can crash and burn actually. I mean, it really can end in that direction. And for a lot of people, it may actually end, worst case scenario. And we're afraid of that. I don't want that. So how do we know that it's not going to end up like that? I love this. If you have a Bible, look this up sometime. It's Romans, the book of Romans, chapter 8. And it says this: we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, who are called according to his purpose. How beautiful is that? It's basically saying, it's like from God saying, God, it's like hearing God say, hey, everything is going to be okay. Why? Because I got this. It's the opposite of everything that we always said in our lives. Like, I got this. I got this. I don't need help. I don't need that, But when we surrender to God, he says to us, I got this. Let me read that again. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God. Now that's a little bit of a qualification. A qualification is like, something has to be true for this to work. And for this to be true, that everything's going to be okay, you do have to love God. Like some people are like, okay, what does it mean to love God? Well, have you ever drawn a heart for Mother's Day? Yep, we're doing it in the air right now. You drawn a heart, and for Mother's Day, you draw the word mom in the heart. And that just says, I love my mom. And sometimes people have described surrendering to Jesus like asking Jesus into your heart. Oh, what does that mean? Your physical heart in your body that pumps blood? Well, obviously we're not talking about a physical thing. We're talking about this idea of loving God. When you get to the point where you surrender to God, that's the greatest sign of love. So if you're like, is everything going to be okay? And it says right here, it is going to be okay. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God. So what does that require of you? If you want everything to be okay, what do you have to do?
Love God.
Love God. And if you think, oh yeah, I do love God, well then let me ask you, have you surrendered to God? Because that's the sign of love. Surrender. It's like, give him your heart, give him everything. And so anyway, it's a great reminder to just keep moving forward in prayer, talking to God, surrender to God, talk to him, admit where you've gone wrong, admit that you need his help. Serenity, we didn't talk much about it, but it means peace, calm, untroubled stillness. And just like all the noise just kind of disappears.
Sounds good.
It does. Quietness. And that's what we're asking God for. Just stop the noise, the craziness. Give me peace so I can start making some good decisions in life.
Yeah, definitely. You know, a lot of noise and basically not a lot of noise in the world, you know, we can drown out from our decision making, you know, can tell us to go this way, tell us to go that way. I did a thing one time when I was teaching the youth, and I had somebody blindfolded and they were walking, and they had to walk through like a maze that we made. But I had everyone on the sidelines yelling to them.
Ooh,
and I
good.
had one person trying to direct them. And it was like that, but they had a hard time making the decision. Do I go left? Do I go right? Because everyone was yelling to them.
Everybody's screaming at them.
Mm-hmm. Everyone screamed at them. But at the time, we told everyone, they're very silent, you know, and you got to hear the voice, that one voice, and it was able to guide them directly. And I think we need that in life sometimes, you know, to block out all the noise and be able to hear, you know, just that voice telling us which way to go, what to do, which direction to take, which door to go through, which door to stay away from, you know. But it's so hard sometimes when we got just all this noise around us. You know?
Everybody has their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's mixing it together.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Fighting For podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right. See you later.